All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Star Trek Resignation, or a Discovery Home Companion, or whatever it is we're calling it. We had a short hiatus there, I guess. Unless you're listening to this like months from now all at once, who cares? Anyways, Enough of that. My name is Wade Bowen, and with me, as has been usual recently, is Glenn Hall.
I mean, it's been usual for quite some time. I don't think I've missed an episode since I started.
I know. Yeah, and we're all very proud of you. No,
thank you.
But speaking of missing an episode, hey, it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded, but also we do not have Sean Parada here. More about that in a second. But if you've listened to a Discovery Home Companion, you may recognize a couple of other voices here. We got my brother and my sister-in-law. We have Lane Bowen and Courtney Bowen.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey, welcome. It's good to have you back. And yeah, so please forgive us. Sean's not here because he got the Rona.
So those of you at home are going to be tempted to think that Wade is joking, but I'm here to tell you that Sean actually did get COVID. He is fine, right. But he did come down with the Rona, as Wade calls it, and he's so he's taking a little break.
Yeah, like we held off because we wanted, wait for him to get back, and he didn't get. But no, he's getting better. But you may notice that Sean likes to yell a lot, so we could have had him on, but he would have gotten all energetic and screaming at Glenn, and he does have coronavirus, so it probably would have killed him to exert himself that much because he's having trouble walking up downstairs, and
it mortifies me to imagine me annoying Sean somehow being the cause of his
untimely demise.
Yeah,
it's serious business, everybody, and we didn't want to murder Sean.
And also, we don't want to give the audience half of him yelling at me. They need the whole production.
Yeah. They don't need to listen to somebody. Maybe it would be good for ratings to listen to somebody die of. Okay, I'm not having. All right,
yeah,
sorry, it's not fun anymore.
Discovery Home just painted turns dark.
Let's talk about Star Trek, guys. Hey, yeah. So we left off, and what were you talking about? Oh, I like that last episode that didn't have Michael Burnham in it. This one, Michael's back, and everybody's back. They got the gang back together. This is episode 3, and what was this one called? I don't even remember.
Earth.
People of Earth.
Directed by Jonathan Frakes himself.
Oh, yeah. By Captain Riker himself. Number 1. Before we jump into it, I guess we can get into synopsises and whatnot and everything, but
I can read the synopsis if you want.
We like to go through it, right? But sometimes we get like what did you think? I like to get everybody's temperature check from everybody of what they felt about it before we get started.
Do we do that before a quick synopsis, or?
Sure.
Because I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'm sure more to come.
Okay. And Courtney, I guess you're on the same boat?
Yeah, so I was really into the first 2 episodes of this season, and then I felt like this one kind of resurrected some old problems, so I was kind of disappointed.
Or maybe we should start, I really liked those first 2 episodes. I was excited to watch Discovery. I was like, hey, Star Trek is fun again. I'm see what happens next. And then this episode happened.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry to jump right in. Yeah, y'all weren't here for the last 2 episodes to talk about it, so yeah, if we get your opinions on what has come before, that's a quick synopsis of it. Courtney, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I mean, the first 2, I was on board. It was, I thought they were doing a really great reset. So I thought the first, episode with Michael Burnham just kind of going off and doing her own thing. That was kind of fun, seeing her in a non-Starfleet role, having to be resourceful, which I think is the strength of the character. And then the second one I really enjoyed, maybe because she wasn't around, but I thought we were actually getting to see the rest of the cast, the rest of the crew, do their jobs, problem solve without Michael. They were getting to do some of the work. And then this last episode, I felt like one of the problems of the previous seasons came back up in this episode, and that is everything falls to Michael, even though there's this ensemble cast and this crew that's supposed to be really great, and we're told are all really good at their jobs.
And they are, as long as she's not around to do all the work for them. That's what we learned last episode. It's like, hey, you know what? They're actually can be fun to watch, and they can do their own thing, and then tell.
They don't need her. Like
they can have their own sci-fi adventures that are interesting, and then Michael comes like, oh, and hey, everybody, Michael's back. Let's just let her do everything again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not as much
Maybe
of a reset as I was thinking.
Right. Well, it's just one episode, but yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of this episode either. It's probably, but you know what? I probably should have done the synopsis first.
We'll fix it in post. Synopsis.
Yeah. So the synopsis, anyways, the gang's all back together. They got to reconnect and emote so hard about everything they've lost because there's been an entire year since Michael has seen them, and it's, you know, her life has just changed in a whole year. A lot of shit happens a year. Just people change completely in a year, and it's been so long, such a long time they've been apart.
Like a day.
Yes, and so they put Book's ship in the shuttle bay, sneak off, go to Earth, which is too far away, and Earth isn't there anymore. I mean, Earth is still there anymore, but Starfleet isn't. And then they have to deal with some raiders on Earth, and then they solve a problem in a Star Trek style where they make the people talk to each other, and they learn that the raiders were actually from Earth and were a colony on Titan that got fucked up when they tried to go back home after the burn, and Earth Defense Force just shot them down. So then there's a war starting there. And it turns out if you just talk to people, you can solve problems. And they're like, thanks for making us talk to each other. You can come visit Earth now. When at first they were like, you can't come to Earth because who the fuck are you? Starfleet's been gone for 100 years. But you made us talk to each other. You solved our problems. You're okay, Starfleet. And and then there's a B plot with a 16-year-old teen genius who's trapped the Earth Defense Force people on the ship. They learn out that teen genius is a saboteur that was trying to get more information about Starfleet, because turns out they know Senatol, this admiral they were going to Earth to find. And then at the end, they learn that I am Senatol, bum, bum, bum. And that's a synopsis of sorts.
Well, you didn't mention why, or did you mention why Adira is Senatol?
No, I did not, because it was just a quick synopsis. The details matter, though, you're right. But turns out she is a Trill. And
no, she's not.
She's a human.
She's
not a Trill.
In her.
She's a human with a Trill
symbiote.
symbiote.
Yes.
She could have easily just been a Trill, and it would change very little, but that's not here nor there.
Well,
I don't know if I did. There's plot reasons she can't access those memories because she's not a Trill.
Right.
And that didn't bother me. That's a fine plot contrivance. That honestly, and then it's like 800 years past Star Trek that we know, and it turns out, like, sure, I bet they could probably squeeze a Trill in a human. We know they can. They had Riker do it. But
exactly, yeah. This is spoilers for an upcoming episode, but there's some Riker erasure to that effect.
Right. But I mean, that's like before they established the rules of Trill like they did in DS9 that were the consistent rules.
That's back when a Trill was essentially just the worm controlling the body.
Yeah. So, and so they're working with DS9 Trill rules, and DS9 had a whole kind of sub-arc of like, wait a minute, we kept saying that only the very special people could be Trills, but it turns out any Trill could be a host, and now they've kind of carried that on further to where, I mean, yeah, sure, shove it in a human, it might not work as well, but you can do it.
And there was they threw out a little, like, you know, tokenism, like, wait, we're from before DS9, so we don't know anything about Trill, except we kind of heard that there might be these Trill things.
Well, so that's a question I had for you guys, who I presume know this stuff better than I do, but I have watched all of Deep Space Nine now, and so I do know that Trill have been interacting with the Federation at least since the TOS era, because Dax fucked
Bones, yeah.
Yeah, Dax and Bones went at it, in one.
Dex and boned.
Yeah, exactly. They're boned squared. But it seems in this episode, it seems like they maybe. I think you said it yourself, Wade. It's like it seemed like they had heard of Trill.
Well,
So
no, I mean,
generation, they're aware of Trill, but they don't fully understand the symbiont.
right.
And so there's an episode with Riker where he is the host to a symbiont.
Right, that's the one where
hours.
Right. And yeah.
Right, and that's where they really kind of learn about the symbionts.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, Trills were known to the Federation, but the details were kind of like I think it works.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of
we're talking about how it works in the world.
That. Like, we've heard of them, but we don't know much.
Like they've heard of them, and they don't. And then Michael says, "Oh, I've seen Trills in the exchanges, like in the last year that she's been a courier and playing Death Stranding with Book." But so she's like, "I didn't know they were host to anything, but that's because of something we learn next episode that." Most Trills even don't have symbionts in them at this point.
Well, they do establish in DS9 that like being host to a symbiont is like a huge honor that you have to like jump through a lot of hoops and qualify for.
Right, there's a lot more Trill than there are symbionts.
Exactly.
Right.
They're almost like I guess they never quite take the leap, except for maybe in this Discovery episode upcoming. That the Trill or the symbionts are like gods to the Trill, but it definitely approaches that.
Yeah, I mean, they revere them.
Yeah, revere is a better word.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
like they don't worship them, but there is a very deep reverence for the symbiont themselves.
They're very cherished and guarded.
Right. It's like some cultures like kind of ancestor worship, and that's kind of what it is. Except they have they can worship the ancestors.
Right. The literal memories.
Yeah.
But that's not really what this episode was about.
That is not at all what this episode is about.
Started off with just Dear Diary, which is, a Star Trek staple, but it was a little more Dear Diary than, well, everything except Discovery.
Yeah. Fucking hate.
Well, yeah, the whole thing with like the Earth Defense Force or whatever they're called and the colony on Titan. That to me,
I'm not even getting to that point. The stuff that before the very opening was, hey, we haven't seen Michael in 2 or 3 days, and then Michael's like, it's been a whole year.
Yeah, Michael's doing like a log where she talks about how she hasn't seen them for an entire year, and she's losing hope, and I mean it's obviously a very long year.
That's my biggest beef with this whole thing. Yeah. Just they could have. Oh, it drives me. This drives me insane. They could have chosen anything. More than a year would have been better. Like, it should have been like 10 years or something.
I mean, really,
but I understand you didn't want to age the actress up.
We shouldn't have gotten them back together till like the, penultimate episode when right before your big finale, you get your first not quite finale plot arc. That's what it should have been, because honestly, it should have
been. They probably should have. They could have made a lot of different choices, but they made the dumbest choice. I understand you didn't want to age the actress up, make her. Oh, it's been 15 years. How come she doesn't look older? But
4 years.
So choose something like 3 years or 5 years. It's just like a year. Like I said last, COVID's lasting longer than a year.
Yeah, exactly. I made that same point.
And we get in the kind of montage at the beginning with her that I don't want to get. She grows her hair out, so I mean her hair grows really fast. I guess I haven't got a haircut since a few months before COVID hit, and my hair is pretty long, but it's not. But people's hair, whatever. I'm not. Let's not get into that.
People's hair grow at different rates.
And I think part of the problem is that but when they do reunite, it's been a whole year for Michael, and it's supposed to be really emotional, but we haven't sensed that passage of time. I mean, I think for us it's been, we're more like the Discovery crew, and it's been like a day.
But the Discovery crew acts the same.
They do.
It's been a year for Burnham. It's been maybe a week at most for the crew.
They landed on that planet and they had 1 day.
So 1 day, they're upset as if they've given up all hope, but it's only been a day for them. And meanwhile, Burnham is like, I've gone through so much, I've changed, I don't know if I'm the same person.
Which I don't see how she's changed at all.
Right.
Well, then by the end of this episode, she's the exact same person. There's
Courtney,
a little bit in the middle of the episode where
Courtney, she's stopped
gonna
being
go off with the book or whatever, but ultimately she goes back.
She stopped being reflexively supportive. I mean, did you not pick up on that in the first episode?
Oh yeah, that's right.
I am not.
And there's a moment here where Tilly says, "Burnham, you've changed. You're different. Have you stopped being reflexively supportive?"
Is that their little heart to heart in the opening?
Yeah, when
Tilly's
she's
talking about dandelions and shit.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, which goes back to another this is the most like previous seasons of Discovery of these 3 episodes, and spoilers, we've watched a few ahead. This is the most classic Discovery that I didn't like episode, because it's leaning on not like really things that feel natural, but it's like, okay, everybody just emote the shit out of everything. You're real sad.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand the premise that they've traveled 900 years, all their family and everybody they've known has been dead for centuries, so that's a shock. Yeah. I think that's what they're trying to sell with like everybody being all shook up about it. But you're right, it does feel like it's been a day. They should,
Right, I mean, like, they haven't earned it with the audience. So, like, It's hard for me to emote with them because they haven't given me a sense that time has passed. Right. I mean, other than just showing me this montage of Michael's hair growing.
Right. Courtney, I think you've hit the nail on the head right there, is because, like, everything in this episode especially, feels very unearned and very rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just wanted to skip ahead to the reset point. Like, okay, this is the new status quo of the show, and to a point, I kind of support them taking a brute force action like that in general this season. Kind of just, like, sweeping away all the bullshit of the first 2 seasons and you know, getting to something more interesting. But yeah, here it's just like
they're picking up some of the crumbs that made the first 2 seasons not that great.
Like, they wipe away the bullshit, but go straight back to the bad character dynamics that made it so tedious.
But my cake is eternal. Like the dumb kind of cheesy lines that like.
Yeah, I hated that.
It's
one.
The
like
dreaming of dandelions. I'm like, when did Tilly have this dream? They've been away from each other for a day, and she's dreaming of Michael blowing on dandelions.
Well, I did like when we were watching it. We were watching then she's talking about blowing on dandelions, and Courtney was like, "Man, that's some white girl shit." Right before, immediately she goes, "I like your hair." The timing
she didn't reach out and try to touch her hair, at least. I
was like, "Oh wow, that really is some white girl."
They have a diverse enough writers' room; they know not to do that shit.
You think they basically did?
They do. I know. Yeah, but they thought about it. There's a time when Michael and Tilly are going up. There's like a hobbit that comes out of the the elevator and says, "Hi, Michael," and walks away. He's just a person. It's like, I'm not here to body shame anybody, but it's like that guy was real short. Like, did he win a contest or something? I don't know.
Well, and even the scene where they look at him like, who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah. He was. He looked like he was hobbit-sized. I don't know if that's offensive or not, but I love hobbits. You know,
as a short hairy dude.
Friends are very into the Hobbit books.
Yeah, but I don't want to get either of you talking about Tolkien for the next hour.
I know. Don't worry, I won't. We talked a little bit while you were bumped off the call.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of unearned emotional stuff, just going with the opening part, and then the Saru as captain scene was like,
oh, that pissed me off.
This whole episode really summed up come on, Saru, be the fucking captain already. He's like, as soon as he shows up, it's like, well, maybe. Do you want to? You sure? I mean, instead, he should have just taken command and been the captain.
Well, that's...
See, I mean, I thought that he kind of did. I mean, he is a little bit like Michael, and she's like, no, just you. And it's like, yeah, that's right. Because that scene, they did jump to, no, you're going to be the captain now. He was a little bit acquiescent with it, which is a bummer, but like at least it didn't take long.
That's
but
true,
then they
but
did
the
have
scene
to.
Should have not it should have been like, are you going to be? Of course he's going to be the captain. He's the freaking captain.
Well, yeah, I mean,
right.
Like,
Well, because they've
Picard
set
and
up this whole
Kirk are-
show as Michael's going to be captain someday, and it's like, nah, it doesn't really work. So they're like, all right, whatever. But of course they have to have a big melodramatic speech about it. Which,
Right.
I mean, the fact that Saru even like considered giving up his command. I mean, that was just never happened with any of the other Starfleet captains.
Yeah.
Well, and
Well, he's not
going back to the
enacting-
last
he's been a
episode
commander.
too. I kind of a little beef with Saru this season is he needs to be the captain, which I guess is kind of an arc they might be going for. But like, same thing with Space Hitler, Michelle Yeoh. You know,
Yeah.
she's second guessing him, and he's never like shutting her down, going "Screw you, I'm the captain." He's even though you've
Right.
got Nazi Space Hitler criminal, and he's
There
constantly
wasn't-
giving her
there wasn't-
the.
that was kind of the arc of the last episode of him shutting.
Yeah, that's what I
Georgia
was going to
down.
say. Is like
I was gonna say-
I liked that in the last episode where you see Saru as this person who is, he is a worrywart at his core and very diplomatic, but like he after Vaharai, he does have this capacity for
Yeah.
assertiveness.
He is a little bit, but yeah.
And that's what
And-
I thought was. I mean, I wanted them to like really lean into it this episode with that scene, especially. You could have. I think they're kind of doing that arc, but they're
think
also
they did-
half-assing it. I think.
I think
Like,
they've
they
been
could
doing
lean
a
better.
more or less pretty. I think they've been doing a more or less decent job of it. This one was, again, it was beholden to the notes they want to hit with the show. Like, this is the Michael Burnham show, so of course we have to defer to her being captain. When, again, you go back to it's only been a day for them, so he's not. He's been acting captain. He's been commander, so they still have to like. It's been a day now that they're in this future. They have to lock down who the captain is actually going to be because there's not any going back. And in the sense that it's been a day and now Michael's back, they're like, well,
That's true.
For them, it's only been a day, so they're like, well, I guess it's you or me. And she's like, I've been here a year. No, it's you. And that's absolutely the only answer that it could have been. Is like,
Right.
but like, and like in the writers' room, I'm sure they're like, well, Michael and Saru have a very sibling rivalry going on, so of course they had to. And Saru was surprised when Michael's not fighting him on it. I'm sure it's like what they've. If you asked the writers' room to talk out their ass about it, that's what they say. And it's like,
Yeah.
I get that, but like,
It goes to my bigger problems. I like Saru as one of my favorite characters because he's one of the few actual characters that has any sort of depth. But
Yeah.
they could do him better. Ever since his ganglia dropped or whatever, he should be a lot more commanding. But he's really the same guy.
Right.
I don't think I don't think I disagree. I think I disagree with that.
Okay, I think it's fair, but I think he could be. It could be a bigger dynamic. He's
Yeah.
changed a little bit, but I think it could be stronger.
I agree with you, Lane. I think that they could be hitting. They're working on it, but they need to be hitting it harder. Like they
Yeah.
need to really firmly establish that. Like Saru is, for all intents and purposes, a different person than he was in the previous seasons because of it's called Vaharai. I remember that for some reason.
Right. Like in the last episode, he was good in that fight at the end. He shot his little hair needles. Like,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have done that before his Vaharai or whatever, and then he stood up to. But yeah, no.
And I think it's just
You're-
indicative of the underlying problem, which is we don't get to see anyone doing their jobs other than Mike.
Yeah.
Which is why that last episode was so good because it was like we finally
Yeah,
got to see them be
doing their
competent,
jobs. Yeah.
which instead of just Burnham being competent, mostly because
Right.
they tell her she's competent.
Yeah. I might be remembering a different episode, but is this the episode where, like, Tilly says something about how she is, like, this tech genius? And that
We-
might be the...
They said it a
There's
couple
with-
of times.
When Adira comes on and like I say teen genius so many times, like it's like, all right, you're laying it, they're laying Tilly on a little thick.
Yeah.
Enough that like Giorgio in a meeting room when Book comes on, he's like, "Are you Tilly?" He's like, "Oh, I'd rather fucking kill myself than be Tilly." He's like, you know what? Good on you because Tilly is laying it on a little bit too strong.
Yeah. But yeah, it's either this episode or the next one. She talks about being this like tech guru genius whiz kid, and I'm like, okay, that's the first we've heard of it, and we haven't gotten to see. This is like season 3, and we haven't gotten to see Tilly B. the whiz kid
Right.
genius. They tell us all these things, but we don't.
They
get to
tell us
see
these
it.
things. I feel like
love
they've told us
telling
that she's
instead of showing.
she's
Yes.
the best. Like, and she tells Adira, the human with the trill, like when like, oh, you're a genius. We're all smart here because we're all Starfleet. So you think you're so smart? Like we're all geniuses here. It's like, which is, you know,
It's like, oh, it's the first we've heard of it.
and it's Star Trek. Everybody's the best
Yeah.
and the brightest, right?
Unfortunately, everybody is also like a young whiz kid teen genius, it seems like. But that's going to be my later beef, I think.
Well, like Anthony Rent is an old.
He's the only one above
He's like the oldest guy,
25.
and he's like what 30?
He's our age, older than us.
Older than us.
No,
he's
he's
not.
older.
Oh,
No, no,
Yeah.
he's definitely in his like mid-40s.
Yeah, he was a
Oh.
teen in Adventures in Babysitting with.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, still, that's the old man.
And then there's Tig,
Right.
who's the old, she's Tig
Yeah.
when she wasn't in this episode at all, but Tig's the best.
Yeah, this is why this episode ultimately suffered, was no Tig. I was
Yeah.
looking for some Jet Reno, and
Yeah.
no Jet Reno, thumbs down.
I think it's like that's one of the new like the odd number Star Trek films aren't good, and any Discovery episode without Tig Notaro is not good.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then there's that B plot with Anthony Rent and Stamets, where they figure out Adira and what her deal is, and it's like it's rushed enough. I feel like because they're doing all this stuff, they're getting to Earth, they're dealing with Michael and Book, and so they're instead of like trying to have the characters butt heads and they'd be like, "What's your deal?" Once they figure out Adira is like a teen genius, Anthony Rapp is just like, "All right, well, here's the deal. We know you're here. What's the deal?" And they don't fight over it. They just say, "All right, here's everything you need to know. Now tell me what we need to know. This is a B plot. We don't have time to hash it out." And then they do.
Yeah.
Because this episode's only 38 minutes, which,
And they're trying to do a whole lot in that
Yeah.
38 minutes that they just haven't earned.
That's a big complaint that I have about the episode on the whole, is just that like this shorter episode deals with what has happened to Earth, the capital of the Federation, since the collapse of the Federation, and what we find out is like, okay, they got like a little more isolationist, and there's an issue with people on Titan who
they got a lot more isolationist, but your point stands.
yeah, but like it didn't feel like I felt like finding Earth would be a bigger deal. Like in this, it
Yeah.
just felt
Right.
kind of just like a.
Well, it goes back to my complaints that this should have been like a couple episodes later, because really, literally, Michael Burnham shows up and then says, "Oh, by the way, I've been searching for Starfleet for a year, and I just found the code to Earth." Just immediately, like she just kind of shows up and she has
Well,
it.
they say, she points it out, like Earth, without the spore drive, Earth is too far to travel because they haven't stranded or connected the strands to go.
They haven't set up the chiral network.
Yeah, the chiral network to Earth isn't set up yet, so they've just, because that was a question, like she's just been cruising around that sector waiting for Discovery to show up, and if she got too far away, they,
Yeah.
because you can't warp. I guess they're traveling impulse everywhere, so you can't warp, like, because dilithium.
Well, that's another thing
can-
that I'm a little
You
confused.
can, like the old Star Trek, you could warp to get across the galaxy, but it would take forever. It could take a long time to get to a different quadrant. That's 72 years for Voyager or whatever. So it's a kind of okay. So somehow it's that plus more. It's harder to get everywhere. So it takes. That's like they tell Earth that they're a generation ship, basically, of a stranded Starfleet vessel that's been on its way back to Earth since the burn. So
Yeah,
that's why
I guess
she hasn't made
the
it
end
to
of
Earth
the
yet.
Episode the first episode where it establishes that she's got to make these connections to Starfleet potential, members and everything. So I kind of expected a little bit of like, okay, here you find another link, and it's like, but she immediately is pretty much, I got it. I mean, I guess. This is 2 episodes. They find the Earth, and then at the end of this one, they know where to go.
Right, because it's taken over the years. She's gotten that message from 12 years ago from Senna Tall, who was on Earth, this admiral that they're looking for, and that's what sends them to Earth. And then I mean, yeah, and then they're trying to set up.
Want to see
what
more of
they've
that
lost.
year where Burnham was doing cool stuff, being like,
Instead of just talking about it.
yeah,
Right.
And more Discovery, like getting to be Discovery without her.
right.
Like,
That year when Discovery got to be their own people, and Michael Burnham got to be her own person instead of all the shit we've had to see them be. For like they both got interesting when they're separated. Now they're back together, and I'm not as interested in any of them.
they're having dandelion dreams.
Right. I think the Dandelion was there, like, in one of the dumb things in season 2 when they're in there telling a story about some African myth and they blow a dandelion out.
That's
or
a short
something.
trek, isn't it?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, it's like it's a
There was
reference to something. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a short trek that's like an animated creation myth.
But, just
Right.
because it's a callback doesn't mean it's
Oh, it's not good.
Good.
No, it was not.
That's some white girl shit.
that's a white girl shit.
Especially when it comes to the short treks.
Yeah, those are mostly bad. There's some like okay ones.
There's like
but-
4 good ones. There's like 4 good ones out of the bunch.
Yeah, there's all this stuff like, oh, remember Donatu 7 and that bog on Ikasu, that book, and all their adventures over the past year where they're bonded. And like, that's fine. You can bond with somebody over a year, but just like,
Sure.
I wanted to see
make it
those.
3
'Cause also,
years.
like really cool adventures.
Book was in one
Yeah.
episode. He's also one of my favorite characters because he's actually interesting. I mean, we've learned more about him than we did any of these cast members we've seen for 2 prior seasons.
I actually know his name.
Yeah.
Like I
Book?
know Book and Adira. I know their names.
And they just showed up. And the whole crew is like, there's, oh crap, there's that black
The bridge
girl.
crew.
There's the
They spent a
black
little
guy,
bit of time-
the Asian
yeah.
guy. And it's terrible that I don't know their
The white
names.
chick with the thing on her head.
Thing in her head. To be fair, I don't know the white chick's names either. So
Well, to give them, they have given them more screen time and emphasis this season than they have over the past 2. There's
Yeah, definitely.
There's
we're not
Bryce
talking
is a
about
guy. There's she's got a long African name. I don't want to butcher. There's
They call her Owo for short.
Owo, yeah, and
Detmer.
and Detmer, yeah,
But
who's
the
got
thing is, this is season 3.
problems.
I'm just now figuring out their name.
right because they haven't bothered. I'm just like, yeah, those first 2 seasons were bad, and they're doing their job to rectify that.
They're working on it.
2 episodes.
I just
So-
wanted to have more time just to get to know them again. But
I agree.
In my
The problem
opinion,
is that
that's
when Michael's around, she sucks up all the oxygen in the room, so we don't get
Yeah.
to see these other characters. And it's like, well, why have an ensemble cast? And I mean, why have a crew if it's just the
Right.
Michael Burnham show?
and that's the thing that I think if I were executive producing the show, well, one it'd be an entirely different show, but like if we're at the same point, I would have made the Federation and Earth. I'd probably group them together. I would have made those the end point of the season. That's
Right.
returning to Federation space in Voyager, and like everything in between that, essentially episodic adventures. Picking up the breadcrumbs of what's happened
Right.
in the galaxy since this burn. I think that's a solid
Yeah.
premise for
Well,
exploring the galaxy.
yeah,
I mean, the premise, I agree with y'all too. And then I also see what they're trying to set up what they've lost. The fact that Earth is not part of the Federation is like, you set up that early as like a, what the fuck? And then supposedly this is going to be a search for the Federation, but spoilers, they find it 2 episodes later. But there's other stuff going on there. I don't know. I'm okay with the shock of Earth being like out of the Federation. That's a bold choice, I think. Like, I might not have made the same choices either, but like, okay, I can.
well, see,
but then
would have been cool if you have 2. Like that should have been mid-season that Burnham and not Enterprise and Discovery get back
Right.
together. They could have this episode without Burnham, and then Burnham could be doing separate stuff, so that when they get back together, then you get the mystery that you get
Right.
your final climactic arc, like you were just saying. But I guess I shouldn't, rewrite it in my head like that. That's not what I should be here for. Enjoy what we get.
That way lies pain.
Yeah,
right, yeah, like that's
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to
Sorry,
sound so negative, but I think part of my problem with this episode was that after the first 2 episodes that I really did enjoy, I thought, okay, we're resetting, and then it just sort of felt like we kind of went back to all the old problems.
yeah. I mean, it did feel like this was more. I did like that this season so far has done episodic differently than the last 2 seasons have. Like they've done episodic episodes, but I don't know. Like they had the problem, they set up the problem, and they solved it by the end of it, which is what the seasons have done before with minor episodes. But it felt better to me a little bit, though it was a back step into like kind of
ultimately
this was like
this
would have been a better episode
so far.
This would have been a better episode.
I guess if anything, I'm more upset because I really liked the first 2 episodes.
Right.
Straight up, nothing to hold back. Like I didn't have to convince myself to like those 2 episodes. This one, I'm going back to have to. Well, it's okay, I guess. I see what they're doing.
Right.
I like it all right. It's to be fair,
this would have been one of the
stories. But the first 2 episodes, I genuinely liked them and wanted to see what happened next. And now I'm like, oh, it's more Burnham stuff.
Right.
Even
this
Burnham,
would have been one of
to watch when I thought it was going to be her and her new boyfriend doing Indiana Jones shit throughout the galaxy. That would have been fun.
Yeah, there should have been an episode that was just that.
Back Book.
Yeah.
I want Book and Tig.
Right. The book's
just
fine to me. I'm not
Book and Tig and just say, screw you guys.
That'd be a great short track.
That's the show I want. Spin off.
Yeah, Books is kind of. He's not the best to me. He's not the worst. He's fine. He's got all these mysteries. Like she's a queen and the Grudge, and the will they won't they with Burnham. Like where like, so she's your girlfriend, and he's like, no, we haven't done anything, and I think. And then this is the second time watching this episode. It's like, oh, he hasn't done anything with Burnham because he's like horny for the cat.
Gross.
Yeah,
because she's not a cat. She's clearly
they're not boning this whole time. And then wait, they are boning. Clearly they're boning. Oh wait,
they state we've never boned. Burnham and I has been like that, but they've clearly got tension. And then he's got like that cat turns into it's like a polymorphed queen or something.
Man, if he's a fucking furry, just have him and I'm okay.
He's horny. Yeah, he's been yiffing with that cat. That's why him and
like
the queen
and start shipping Burnham and Book because that's the most interesting about Burnham. I'm down with that. They were fine together, but this
the queen won't allow it though. She's got a chastity belt on Book because she belongs to the cat.
Well, Wade, you mentioned, I think it was the last time we recorded, you mentioned that there's a theory making the rounds that Book is like, whatever the Borg have become. And I at the time, I think I said, like, give the Borg a rest, but I kind of like that theory. I kind of hope that turns out to be true.
Well, they talk in this episode even, like, they're like, Book, Cleveland Booker, is he from Earth? And he's like, no, it's not. There's a story there, but we don't know it. So all the Book stuff is a bunch of mystery boxes that are going to be opened later in the season. Like he's not from Earth, but he's got some Earth connections, and so him being a potential whatever Borg, advanced Borgs only have glowing red lights when they talk to animals and plants or something. I don't know, but who knows. But there's all these mysteries with Book, which
they're more interesting than any of the mysteries in quotes with the other Burnham boyfriends of the past, like
right.
I'll totally take Book over that Red Angel.
If he's a secret Klingon.
Oh God.
Oh man.
Clem Fandango.
Yeah, she's only got a thing for Klingons, I guess.
So Klingons now have glowy things in their heads, and not
and human names.
Yeah.
Well,
something virus.
Well, isn't there that episode of DS9 where the Defiant crash lands on a planet and goes through some timey-wimey bullshit, and it's 1,000 years in the future, and or maybe not that far, but it's it's like all their descendants, and all of the DNA has kind of basically intermingled, like everyone, all the different species throughout the years, and it'd be interesting to see if stuff like that has happened in the galaxy writ large, with all of these cultures, coexisting, especially being isolated together, seeing that.
Well, the Andorians and the Orions have business partners, and who knows? We'll learn about Trills next week.
This is my least favorite episode.
Can we talk about the peace talks or whatever that was?
With
episode?
Wen and Titan colony. And
Yeah,
sure, what do you
and
want to say?
like-
Shake hands.
Yeah, they've been feuding for hundreds of years, and then Michael shows up, and she's like Jared Kushner or whatever, and now all of a sudden there's peace, like within 15 minutes.
Look, he has the business experience that applies in any situation.
Right?
Well, when that plot, did you get the feeling the writers maybe watched The Expanse and just smushed it together and their belters combined with
yeah.
Martians, and then they solved that real quick?
They're the Belters, and Earth is
Right.
yeah.
From what little I've seen of that show, that would make sense.
I mean,
Right,
it goes
and
with
the guy
whole
was-
MO of we're just ripping off video games, but they also may have watched The Expanse for this episode.
Right. I'll say that guy was good casting for a Belter when he took off the helmet.
Yeah.
And like, you're not an alien, and he's tall and skinny, like perfect Belter casting, right? For the low G, stretched out, skinny people that are kind of.
Oh, I see that. I see what you're getting at.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the first time it didn't bother me. I was like, okay, fine, I see what you did, and then this episode solved this problem. Second time, I was like, all they had to do was talk, and that's all you had to do. I was like,
And that gets to my complaint of like this all felt like very rushed, and it's just like this seems like a bigger deal than they're like really framing it as. It's like this is like this huge conflict that they've just essentially waved away, and it's like again it felt half-assed.
It felt to me, to be fair, we'll see how I like the later episodes, because this kind of felt like one of the off episodes of TNG that wasn't quite as, this one
Right,
off where they go
yeah.
to a planet, they fix their problems, and it's kind of contrived how they do it, but it's just a one-off episode. It kind of felt like one of those episodes to me. It just so happened to also be hugely important because it's Earth, and it's the first
Exactly.
episode that Burnham and the crew are back together. But if they really pull it together for the rest of the season, this will just be one of those down episodes. It wasn't as good as the rest of them, but
right.
Point.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm hoping to see it, but
It's like Conspiracy, where you have this episode with these massive implications for the Federation and Starfleet that they've been taken over by evil Trill essentially, and never mentioned again.
right.
Just completely
hopefully-
inconsequential.
Yeah. Another thing that bugged me in this episode, it was every time anything happened, like they got shot by something and took their shields out, they saw the shield array around Earth. They'd say, "Oh, this technology is very advanced shield technology." Like, no, you fucking dumbass, you're just 900 years old.
yeah.
They kept over and over again, like, "Oh, this thing's very advanced that we're coming up against." Like, yeah, everything is, you dummy. They kept.
900 years
every
is a
time
long
they'd come
time.
across something on the bridge,
Yeah,
like, oh, it's an
there-
advanced thing.
Throughout the season, there is very inconsistent portrayal of the fact that they are almost 1,000 years in the future and the implications of that. You see
I
some
mean,
of it,
it's-
to be fair.
It's mostly consistent, but like Discovery is insistent that everything else is advanced. Like, no, and like when the view screen comes up, the Earth Defense Force is like, oh, a view screen, very quaint. It's like, yeah. Just forget that this show started where nobody used a view screen and everybody was hologram talking. But that's just growing pains for every Star Trek has shitty first 2 seasons, I guess.
Yep.
And then they end with the melodrama of like, hey, I see what you're doing there. Like, hey, look, remember we're an ensemble now, so we send everybody down to Earth to look at a
Hug the
tree
tree.
and say, yeah, like, oh, let's go look at the same giving tree that we all sat under. And it's like, okay, it's dumb. It's like, okay, I see that you think you're doing cheesy Star Trek stuff, but also, no, you're doing the bad cheese that Discovery has done in the past.
Everybody's
So
got that mentality of like a bunch of high school theater nerds. Like the
Right,
whole
well,
crew is, a bunch of they're putting on Guys and Dolls next week or some shit.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to they haven't earned the emotion that they're trying to go for. Like, if they had made me feel like there really was this passage of time, and then they showed me an image that resonated with me, like a random tree in San Francisco doesn't do it for me. Like, I need like the Statue of Liberty toppled over or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
There's a reason that's an iconic scene. Like,
Right.
there's an emotional response.
They thought they were doing that with the iconic shot of the Golden Gate Bridge with Starfleet headquarters, and they needed something that they could throw in the teaser for all the Star Trek nerds to say, oh, look, they go to Starfleet Academy. But so they couldn't make it too different to show that it's not Starfleet Academy anymore, because then they'd screw up their promotional material for this episode.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing. This is Earth, where a majority of the crew are from, or at least have some, roots on. Like, why not show someone, like, finding members of their family or their descendants or their their family line or something, like something that like has more emotional weight to it than a tree that we've never heard of before in the context of this franchise.
A tree is quick, and you don't have to spend a lot of screen time to do it. I think is probably right.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what it is. They're like. Yeah. They're looking for shorthands, and that's one that just doesn't resonate. But it's a shorthand they can do as a writer's trick to say, look at this tree. But it's like, it's not. It's nice that you can keep your runtime down by using that to hit the character point or.
But it's 900 years, and everybody remembers the same tree. It still looked like a tree that doesn't look necessarily like 900 years old. I mean.
Yeah. It was a big ass tree,
but...
and they did say it's so much bigger now.
Changed and they've lost everything, but you use a tree as
nobody cut that tree down.
Yeah,
right.
There was no change to it, and I think it also, like for me, it reiterated just how young this crew is. Like they all seem to be like, it was just like last year that I was under this tree in Starfleet.
Right.
I mean, it's a very young crew that there's not much character development, not much, experience or backstory. And the fact that it's like, well, we're going back to Starfleet because, we don't have any other experience to draw from. Just sort of reiterated that.
Right, yeah, because they've only had 2 episodes of actually remembering that these characters are characters.
Right, exactly. Like, I don't know anybody's rank. I think they're all ensigns.
No, they're lieutenant and
Lieutenant Dittmer, but everyone else.
Tilly's an ensign. They're all higher. Tilly's the lowest ranking, because she was a cadet.
And yet everybody acts like she's the one to look up to. It's like, you're all outranking her.
Well, apparently she's a whiz kid.
Yeah,
right. Well, that's like a Wesley Crusher problem too, right there. Like, It's not without precedent in Star Trek.
Because that's the character you want to replicate in your shows.
Right. Yeah. No.
Well,
I'm not saying
everybody
it's great.
wants to be Wesley Crusher.
Yeah. Well, no. More people than you think. But yeah, it's not great.
I like the first 2 episodes.
Hear about some numbers.
Oh yeah.
I don't have anything else to say about this episode, but I figure we should get to Courtney's favorite segment.
And my favorite part.
I promise it'll be quick.
The drinking game.
Well, yeah. So I'll add the noise in post, but it's status report time. Big update since the last time we spoke. I have completed all of Deep Space Nine. Great show. Did not totally care for the finale, but that's okay. It got a little too much of that high fantasy peanut butter in my Star Trek chocolate, but that's all right. No judgments. Like, very few shows have a perfect finale. But
the final shot was good. That's about as best you can say.
Yeah, that with Kira and Jake. Yeah, that's a nice parting shot for the show, and there's a lot of great stuff in that finale, but overall it's like Ducat and Cisco fighting it out.
Don't get spoilers, man.
Sorry.
It's a 20-year-old show or 30.
Well, I was about to spoil even worse. I was about to spoil the end of the Wheel of Time because the final fight in Deep Space Nine very much mimics the final fight in A Memory of Life.
I haven't finished that yet. It's been more than 20 years since I started.
I'm really getting to it.
14 books, you don't say.
I read up through 12 and then said, Oscar.
What? You got to You got to, what is that? 12 is Towers of Midnight?
What have we done?
I don't know if it was 12 or not. It was double digits though.
Yeah, I got
That's,
up to
so that's probably, let's see, 11 is Knife of Dreams.
That might have been it. It's whenever Matt just hangs out in the city.
Well, that might be Gathering Storm. So it's not, Knife of Dreams is 11.
All right.
Gathering Storm is 12.
I'm gonna
Towers
just
of Midnight is 13.
Sean's not here, but I'm just gonna go.
Anyway, so I've
This
moved
is
on.
where Sean would be dying right now.
Yes. This is where he would be.
Thanks, Glenn. You just killed Sean.
I don't know. Anyway, so I've moved on to Voyager, a show I've watched the first season. I enjoy Voyager. I think Voyager is kind of like a lesser TNG, with with more of a formal arc, obviously. But
Courtney just gave you a
the
thumbs down.
episodes.
You didn't see it, but sorry.
What's that?
Courtney just gave a thumbs down on liking Voyager. I'm totally narking on her.
It gets better, but I didn't like the first season.
Look.
It has its moments. Yeah.
I'm not saying like I loved the first season, but like it's a great kind of low impact show to have on if you got something else to do.
That's true.
Again,
I
like
a lot more right now.
Yeah, the pilot I liked. I liked a lot about the pilot. I mean, obviously the main issue is the characters are not on the same caliber as TNG or DS9. Like there's an uphill battle there. But I do like Kate Mulgrew. I think she's an interesting captain, or at least has the potential to be an interesting captain, rather. We'll see what I think about it in the long run. But like, I don't mind it. Maybe that's the most accurate say. I don't mind it. Like they're perfectly acceptable Star Trek stories for the most part. I think I also watched I think it's the season 2 premiere where they come across Amelia Earhart, in the Gamma or not the Gamma Quadrant, the Delta Quadrant. Thank you. And it's batshit. It's really more of a TOS premise than a TNG premise.
Right.
But it was dumb fun, and it's like I enjoy this. Like I enjoy this. Like, and I understand the characters well enough to.
I can actually remember what the characters were like on that, so it's got something above Discovery so far. So
Doctor's great.
Yeah, the Doctor Picardo is good. So
I think he's my favorite character so far. The episode with him going through Beowulf was pretty interesting to me.
That's one word for it.
I like that episode.
Yeah, that was.
I like the Doctor, but
and Wade, I'm a big fan of shenanigan episodes, especially holodeck shenanigans. So I was gonna like that one.
I didn't. Yeah, I don't remember. I haven't watched that in a long time. But all right. So what's that? Put your numbers at. That's what people come to this for. They don't care about details. They want that hard math.
Yes, the hard math. Let me just the final calculation for my current numbers are. Sorry, it's taking a second to load. I think I'm like in the 60s, 60%.
I'm just gonna totally disregard
make this worse.
I'm shaking her head right now. I'm just totally gonna rat Courtney out for all
Let me
her.
put this in my spreadsheet.
68.07% of Star Trek is where I'm at.
Even our dog is moaning.
Oh,
all right. Well, my kid's rolling around in the crib, so that's a bad sign too.
Oh no. Well, I'll end status report. Wee woo.
You woke up the baby, Sean.
I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, it's definitely not me yelling in the other room that did it.
Somehow it is my fault. Yeah, Star Trek's good. I like it.
Yeah. I'm hopeful for the season going forward. This is not my favorite. Yeah.
I mean, for all my complaining, I really liked those first 2 episodes, and this one, if it had been,
this would have been later and not so rushed.
Right. And if this had been an episode in season 1 or 2 of Discovery, it would have been one of the better episodes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I would have been more forgiving of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I appreciate it, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was thinking the whole time. Like, this would have been a better episode of earlier Discovery.
That's a
but it's not
low,
good
low
episode.
bar.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I think kind of wish they had started the show here. You know, that would have been
Those growing pains were hard, yeah.
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 That makes sense. I can dig it.
All right. We've probably gone on long enough.
Thanks for letting us come hang out.
Oh yeah, it's good to. Yeah, thanks for.
Bitching about Trek.
Yeah, we need somebody to fill that niche.
Who else are people gonna hate as much as they'll hate us? Come on.
Sean.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't hate Sean as much as they hate us.
I don't know.
No, they have a unique hatred for Sean, and it is absolutely mutual.
He's probably more fun to hate than we are, though. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I don't
there's
know.
2 of us, so maybe it's double.
Well, Wade, I think it's safe to say we can hit the self-destruct button. We're done.
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I don't know if we have the same code as we do. It's just
Well, it changed when Sean got sick. So, let's say
it doesn't matter. Just push
Dominion
the button,
Cuck or
Frank.
whatever.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, so do I need to say something? Beta, what?
Yeah, beta cuck.
My wife's right here! Exactly. Wait.
Wait. All right. Well.